some seller's remorse in comic book collecting land. A bit of a pickle that a certain comic book dealer finds himself in this week, although maybe not too big of a pickle, depending on your outlook of the situation. But we're going to talk about it here today. Comic book collector sells his collection to comic book dealer and 2 years later wants it back. That is right. In this video, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, should the seller give it back? Are there any givesy backsies in the collectible market? Well, the answer to that is obviously no. But we're going to talk about it here in this video regardless. And then later on, we're going to talk about the amount of collections that are surfacing up these days in the current state that LCS owners keep telling me about, dealers keep telling me about, a lot of collections bubbling up. And you got to ask yourself, if you're somebody out there who's thinking about selling, do you really want to sell right now under these conditions? But of course, before I get into the story, if you guys could drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, doing those things, I appreciate it. But let's get into this video here today. Now, this is a story coming out of the comic book group on Facebook. I am a member of the comic book group. I really enjoy the Facebook groups. If you're not a member of the comic book Facebook groups, I highly recommend you join them. A lot of interesting stuff, a lot of good deals, you can find out there, selling stuff, interesting stories. But we're going to talk about this one here today. A very interesting one that generated, as you can see, 744 comments. So you can tell that this is a hot button topic in this thread, but I'm going to go over this dealer's post and read you here what they said, and then we're going to kind of break it down, talk about it, and then talk about comic book collections as a whole. So this poster says, "I'm at a loss here and wondering if anyone has any advice. I buy massive collections all the time. I've bought hundreds of boxes at a time from shops and buy private collections basically once a month, if not more. I just had someone look up my phone and call me whose collection I bought nearly 2 years ago. He says he wants to get his books back at the same price he sold them for, and that he wasn't in his right mind when he sold them to me." I mean, not to get ahead of myself and also sound like a heartless jerk, I got to say that this person already is giving me red flag vibes. I feel bad and do want to help the guy out. What he doesn't seem to understand, however, is that I don't even know which specific books of his I still have, since they've been mixed in with other collections, buried under them, half sorted through, cherry picked, etc. I offered to sell him back bulk boxes of random books at a reasonable price. This man, however, says that it is unacceptable since he has an inventory of what he sold me and is willing to look through my boxes, meaning my massive inventory of hundreds of boxes, searching for his specific issues. Again, he wants his specific books back at the exact same price he sold them for 2 years ago. I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to do in this situation. I don't want to be a jerk, but this legitimately seems like an impossible task. What would you do in this situation? Well, you guys can let me know what you would do in the comments. Already, my personal advice to this seller is to just say, no, sir, no, you cannot buy your books back. Like you said, they're already mixed in, they're already chopped up. Once you let the toothpaste out, you can't put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste bottle. It's too hard to do it. And, this is an unfortunate situation, but what are you going to say to the seller? I mean, it would be one thing if, this guy was coming back and wanting to buy his comic book collection, maybe he sold it to you a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe. But once you start to get to a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, I mean, this thing is long gone. There is no buying back comic book collections. And I would say, I'm not going to go through the comments right there. I'm sure that most people here are going to agree with this, but the majority of people in that thread were obviously telling the dealer, you're being way too nice. There's nothing you can really do about this. You're trying to help the guy out. And you could also tell, from that post, the person is, the dealer was like, oh, you can buy some of my bulk stuff back. I'm getting the sense that this comic book collection that he bought wasn't necessarily golden age rare books and keys that are very obvious for them to kind of parse through and find out, okay, yeah, these are the ones I actually sold you. I'm getting the sense that this is a bulk collection of whatever books that this person has a particular nostalgia for, and he just wants them back. And that's really the thing that I think is interesting about the story and made me think about wanting to talk about it, wanting to make this video here today, because it's not really so much about that particular situation. To me, it really kind of hammers home this idea of what is going on right now with the amount of comic book collections that are surfacing at comic book stores and to comic book dealers. I mean, I go into many stores here in the Los Angeles area, and I talk to a lot of the people that work there and the owners. And every now and again, I'll kind of ask, it's just like, hey, like, have you been noticing a lot more inventory coming in the door? Like, a lot more people looking to sell their comic book collections. And by and large, most of the store owners say absolutely, absolutely. The amount of collections that are coming into stores these days is, through the roof, like 2x of what it was the last year, 4x of what it was, the year before that. And that's really the funny thing about this situation, because that particular seller actually probably did the right thing, where he sold his comic book collection 2 years ago when I would assume the prices were a lot better. I mean, he's kind of saying, I want to buy my comic book collection back for the same price. I actually wonder if his collection is actually valued at the same price that he got it for 2 years ago. But, I'll kind of table that and relate it back to where we are right now, where, people are looking to sell their collections now because they're sort of like, they want to get out of the comic books. They're over it. They're in the jaded phase of their comic collecting journey, if you guys know that reference to my whiteboard video. And I think that now is the time that people are bringing it back to the comic book stores. And, really it makes me think, like, if you're somebody out there who is in a situation where you want to unload your comic books or you want to sell whatever, and there's certain situations, obviously it's case by case. There's certain situations where, yeah, you may want to do that. You may want to cut some of your losses if you got, keys that are, or you got a collection that's just a bunch of fill and you just kind of want to offload it. You don't really want to hoard it anymore. Yeah, you can certainly sell it now and get what you can for it. But I feel like in this current environment, in this current market, the reality is you're not going to get what I think you're hoping to get from a lot of stores and sellers and dealers if you sell your comic book collection today. Assuming it's the 9 out of 10 type of collection where it's a lot of, Copper Age and image books and things like that. Like, it's not going to have the value that is worth unloading it, especially if you're like this particular seller, from this particular post, who has a nostalgic feeling towards your books. If you have some connection to them, if they're your childhood collection and you're just thinking, oh, I want to get some money out of it. I mean, that is always the risk of selling it back to stores and the market. I mean, the comic books have a spirit to them. I think, I do feel bad, a little bit bad from the guys. Like, I want my specific issues. And I get that. I've talked about how, the two most important comic books in my personal collection are my personal copy of Darkhawk 1 that I had when I was a kid, and my personal copy of Wolverine 1 that my brother had when he was a kid. So those are the two books that really matter. There is a spirit behind those, and you can't replace that with any other Darkhawk copy, save for maybe my Darkhawk double cover, but that's neither here nor there. So this is really kind of the interesting thing about it. And, when I think about situations and what's currently going on in the market and the amount of comic book collections that are being sold, I think if you're somebody out there who's on the fence, you kind of want to cash out, you have to accept the fact that if you cash out now, if you sell now, you're not going to be happy with the offers that you're getting and the amount of money that you're getting for the comic book collection, especially if you're somebody who knew the value of your collection a year ago and 2 years ago. That's just the reality of it. I mean, if you can weather the storm, it would be so much better. Right? I've made this joke before on the channel, but I'm going to do it again because I know there's always new viewers and not everybody watches the entire videos. But you don't want to be the guy who sells your comic book collection now, when everyone is hating Secret Invasion, and nobody cares about, all these superhero movies and superhero shows. You want to be the guy that when Avengers Secret Wars comes out and everyone is losing their minds because Robert Downey Jr. makes a surprise cameo appearance that has a scene with Hugh Jackman Wolverine going up against the Beyonder. You want to be the guy that goes into your LCS that Saturday on the release weekend of Avengers Secret Wars and says, hey, here's my 15 long boxes of comic books. What will you give me for them? That's when you want to sell it. That's the time you want to drop your collection into an LCS store or sell it to a dealer, when the market has turned, when the hype is there and the macroeconomy is in a better state. So right now is a really tough time, and I feel it's kind of an interesting thing with this post because on the one hand, I feel bad. Like, the guy probably is regretting it more from a nostalgic reason rather than a financial reason. But just know, I mean, if you sell your collection, those are always going to be the risks and the realities of when you actually unload this stuff. I mean, I have to do more videos here on the channel. I probably want to do a transparency video about the Fantastic Four collection that I got. You'd be happy to tell people, what I sold and how much I made, if I made anything, which frankly is not really that much. But I think that it's really interesting to see kind of how the sausage is made on this side of stuff, and just the sweat equity alone that it would take for this dealer to try to figure out how to get this guy's collection back in order and give it back to him it's just not worth the time, not worth the effort. And the fact that he feels kind of guilty about it, which I understand, I probably would feel a little bit guilty too, or you'd have that feeling. But my heart goes out to that collector. But the reality is, there's not really much you can do. This is vintage secondary comic market stuff. There is no return policy. There is no regret purchases. This is not like a retail store where you can just return up to 90 days. This is comic book, man. And in comic books, there is no crime, just like in baseball. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. That was an interesting story, an interesting thing I felt like talking about here on the channel. What do you guys think about that situation? By and large, 99.9% of people on that thread were like, saying to the buyer, sorry, there's nothing you can do, and telling the seller that he did nothing wrong. And for the most part, I agree. I imagine that a lot of people would agree here as well. Obviously, I can't give counsel to this person. I don't know if there's any legal actions because the guy said I wasn't in my right mind. There's some people that are talking about that aspect as well. But again, I feel like, in a vacuum, it's always going to be a tough thing if you sell your collection, and if you sell it now, you may not be happy with the results. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. What do you guys think about the situation? Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next one.